Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Becca and this is my channel where I talk about all the planty things. I haven't said that in so long, kind of nostalgic at this point. But anyway, I'm so glad that you're here with me today because we are talking about plants that you should put outside this summer, or plants that will thrive outside this summer. And before I get into that, I wanted to say that this video is sponsored by Marlowe, and I'm so excited to tell you about them a little bit later because they have been super helpful in my sleep lately. The reason that it's fun to put plants outside in the summertime is that they are getting a lot more light outside than they would inside. They're also experiencing temperatures that might be closer to their native land, and they're also experiencing more humidity, most likely, depending on where you live. I put plants outside on my patio when I was living in Tucson, and I had a completely shaded patio. It was western exposed, but it had a huge Palo Verde tree over it, so they really didn't get anything more than dappled sun, which was perfect for them. And then in my current house, I have a huge oak tree outside, which is where I put all of the plants underneath that oak tree. If you have a covered patio or a heavily shaded area, that is most ideal because houseplants, they are understory plants out in nature, which means that they are not full sun plants. Some of them could get to that point, but not immediately. Houseplant leaves are very sensitive because they have been inside in very shady conditions for all intents and purposes. If you were to immediately put them outside into the direct sunlight, they are going to experience sunburn, as you or I would most likely. Mine will eventually turn into a tan, but I will have to suffer through a sunburn first. And I don't like doing that. It's not good for us. And it's not good for our plants either. So sunburns usually look like brown patches on a leaf or even just like black spots on the leaf. And sometimes a plant will start wilting if it's getting too much sun. So those are just a few signs to look for when you do put plants outside if they're getting too much sun. So with that being said, you need to have a fully shaded area. And if there is any sun getting onto the plants, I would suggest that that is eastern exposure because eastern sun is a lot more gentle than like southern exposure or western exposure. Since they're getting more sun, they're going to be using more energy, and which means that they're going to be using more water. So if you have the plants outside on a covered patio where they're not going to be getting rained on, it's important that you increase your watering because the soil is going to dry out a lot faster. And of course, I want to be so clear that this really depends on where you live, because in a dry climate like Tucson, I had to water my outside plants, my house plants that I brought outside, probably every other day. Did I do that? No. It was probably like once a week. I definitely should have watered them more often. But now where I live in Missouri, it rains so much, and since they're not under a covered patio, they're under a tree, they do get rained on. So I pretty much never have to water them unless it's like sort of droughty and it hasn't rained in a few days. That's really the only time I ever had to pay attention to them. But if they were under a covered patio, I would probably have to water them maybe every 5 days here because it is so humid. There's still a lot of moisture in the air and the soil isn't drying up as fast. So definitely be aware of that. And if this is your first year bringing plants outside, take it as an experiment and definitely observe the plants and observe the soil and see how quickly it's drying out so that you have a better idea of, you know, how often you need to water them. And if they are outside already, it's just like one quick step to putting them out underneath the rain. If it is starting to rain, you don't have to worry about lugging around a watering can or your hose if you can just stick them out under the rain because it's cloudy. And the sun is not, the sun is very hidden away if it's raining. So you probably won't have any sunburn issues with that. Oh, I guess I could address like pests. And now that I live in an area where there are like animals and stuff, I feel like I have a better perspective on this because in the past when I would put houseplants outside, I would get a lot of questions like, oh, what do you do about squirrels? And what do you do about frogs? And just like animals. Most houseplants are toxic, and I feel like animals know this. Like if they take a bite of it, realize it's toxic, they're gonna move on. Like there's a reason there are deer resistant plants, right? Because they don't taste good to the deer, so they're not gonna continue chomping on it. So I didn't have any deer or squirrels eating my plants at all. I did definitely find like nuts in the pot, and somebody asked me like if I ever had animals like digging in the soil, and honestly I did not experience that at all. And I live in a very heavily wooded area and there's lots of squirrels around, so Definitely found nuts at the top of the pot, but not like deep in there. I never saw evidence of somebody digging into the pots. And I'm assuming that the nuts that I did find were either from them like perching on the pot and eating, or them just falling out of the oak tree and into the pots. So again, just keep an eye on your plants and make sure that nothing is digging in it. Like, you will immediately know if something has been digging in your pot because there's just like soil everywhere. But I didn't experience that in this heavily wooded area, so I don't know, maybe you will, but just keep an eye on it. I didn't experience any pest pressure, but you know, with them being outside, they are exposed to more different types of pests than we would have inside. On the inside houseplants, we mostly deal with scale, mealybugs, spider mites, thrips, things like that. But outside, they could be exposed to aphids and other types of pests that typically live on outside plants. So just make sure to continue observing your plants, of course, and be careful about your use of systemic insect control, because systemic, if it's on the leaves, it can affect pollinators. Pollinators do not bite into plant matter, so in that way it wouldn't affect them. But if pest control sprays and things like that was on the surface of the leaves, then that is when a pollinator would be affected. And I'm not 100% an expert on this because, again, I haven't had to deal with pests on my houseplants that go outside, and if I ever did see them, definitely if there is anybody out there who knows more about protecting pollinators while also getting rid of the bad bugs, comment down below and we would love to learn from you. As I mentioned before, this video is sponsored by Marlow, which is a pillow brand designed to give you better sleep. So this is how they arrive. They'll arrive in a box wrapped up like this. Marlow creates pillows with adjustable loft, so that is how firm or soft the pillow is. They also have cooling gel, breathable mesh, and lots of support. So the coolest thing, as I said, is the adjustable loft. So right here you can see there is a zipper that opens up the pillow to be a little bit wider, aka a little bit softer. And then if you want a firmer pillow, you can just zip it up and it's a lot firmer, and that's on both sides too. This pillow is really awesome because typically pillows that have an adjustable loft require you to insert or take out stuffing, and that can be a little messy, like where are you supposed to store the stuffing? But with Marlow, all you have to do is open up the zippers and you have a completely adjustable pillow, which is really nice because I have a tendency to switch between side sleeping and back sleeping, and depending on how you're sleeping, you need different types of support. So rather than having like 9 different types of pillows at your disposal, you only need one. So if you're interested in checking out Marlow, you can click the link down below and change the way you sleep. Plus, they have a 365-day return policy if you're not happy with your purchase, and a 2-year warranty. If you buy 2 pillows, you save 25%, and if you buy 4 pillows, you save 40%. So super awesome deal, super awesome pillows. I kind of just want to like have this behind me for the rest of the filming so that I can just lean on it. It's so nice. Anyway, thank you so much, Marlow, for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into it. Once your nighttime temperatures are consistently above 55 to 60 degrees, that is when your houseplants will be happy outside. And then as far as like cactus and succulents, I'd say around 40 degrees or more at night, they're gonna be happy. They can handle the cold a little bit better than a tropical houseplant, but I wouldn't push it if you have the time to wait. Now, as far as plants that are going to thrive outside, we want to look for plants that have more thick leaves. So the thinner the leaves, the faster that plant is going to get thirsty. The thicker the leaves, the thicker the stems, the slower it's going to get thirsty and the better it's going to do outside, in my opinion. I have put plants outside like Monstera adansonii before and like a pothos, and it didn't really go that well, but that was in Tucson and I wasn't watering it very often. I think maybe here it might do better if it was getting more water. I don't know, I might try it again this year. I have a list of plants I'm going to experiment with outside this year and see what happens. For the most part, thick leaves, thick stems are going to do the best. The first plant that will definitely do well outside for you this summer is a ficus. Now, ficus, rubber trees, they come in a lot of different varieties. This right here is my Ficus taniki, and this one definitely lives outside all summer. Along with the rest of my ficus, I have a burgundy and a fiddle leaf fig, and they all go outside and they put out so many new leaves throughout the summer. It's actually so cool to see ficus doing what they're actually supposed to do, because in my homes, my ficus have never ever thrived, and I think it's because I can't give them as much light as they need, and humidity too. Ficus really love lots of light and humidity, and in nature, ficus is one of those plants, or it's a tree, they are full sun plants. And so with these, I definitely could put them in full sun if I work them up to to it. So I put them in the shade and then I put them out in the full sun for a little bit, bring them back into the shade, a little bit more full sun, and I just do it slowly. Especially the fiddle leaf fig. That one can definitely handle full sun, but it would take a long time to get it acclimated to that point. So I typically just have them in the shade and they grow just as well, and it's super, super fun. The next plant that you should put outside this summer is the Monstera deliciosa, and that counts for the albo, which is what I have right here, the Thai constellation, or the green form. I've put my green form Monstera outside in Tucson and it really, really liked it. It definitely thrives on more sunlight and puts out lots of beautiful big new growth. But I do have to say, if you're going to put like a Monstera Thai constellation or an albo outside, make sure that it's not visible. Like if you live in a populated city, like in a neighborhood or something like that, I don't think that I would suggest putting those ones outside because people would probably steal it, which really sucks because like, I don't know if that would have been the case a couple years ago, but stealing plants is like definitely a thing now. So I don't even know if I'm gonna put mine outside this summer. Probably will just put the green form outside. I don't know, I just wanna be extra careful with them. Not that anybody would probably steal it from my area, but you never know. The next type of plant that will do well outside this summer are cacti and succulents. Cacti and succulents are meant to be grown outside. I truly wholeheartedly believe that. Unless you have a lot of grow lights or a south window, they are not going to be thriving and growing really well unless they are outside in full sun for most of their lives. When I lived in Tucson, I had my cactus outside year round because the freeze was never that bad and they were covered from my patio, so you know, I never had to bring them in. There were a few times that I was a little paranoid when it got down to like 28. I did bring them inside, but that was maybe like twice a year. So not too bad. But here, I brought them in a little bit too late and I did lose a few of them, which was really sad, but I'm working on replenishing my collection. But anyway, the amount of growth that they experienced in last year being outside in the full sun, it was amazing. Truly, I have never seen cactus growth like that before. And I think it's a combination of them being in like really solid soil, them having lots of light, and then also the consistent watering because it rains a lot in Missouri, as I've mentioned before. And I just had them out there. I never covered them when it rained. And because my soil is so well draining, it just ran right through. It never pooled up in the pot and the soil was, you know, it had time to dry out because it's so airy, but it was also getting rained on quite a bit, which is pretty typical for the desert. You know, we have monsoon seasons in the desert. And so there are periods where it rains almost every single day in the desert, and that's normal and the plants like it. They're able to store up that water for the times of the year where that doesn't happen. And so that's why I bring them inside in the wintertime and don't water them pretty much the whole time. I think I watered them one time this winter, and outside this summer they're gonna get rained on like probably 3 or 4 times a week and they're gonna be super happy to have it. This one specifically grew like I'd say 5 or 6 inches this summer, and it was honestly a plant that I thought was gonna die. Like I really thought this is a serious spiralis. I thought it was gonna die because it was looking like almost like a skeleton. And then this summer, being out in the rain the whole summer, it plumped up so nice and it's held that shape all through the winter, which is really, really exciting. With that being said, you do need to acclimate them out into full sun. So if you have any sort of shade cloth or you're able to sort of move them in and out of the sunlight, you know, a couple hours in the sun, a couple hours in the shade, just for a few days, that would probably be better. I have a really big white ghost euphorbia that I just threw outside. I didn't acclimate my cactus last year and they were all fine except for this white ghost euphorbia. It got a pretty bad sunburn on one side of it and now it's kind of ugly, but I just put that side to the wall and I don't see it. But I would really love to have that one outside this summer because I'm sure it'll grow really big, but it just needs to be like in the shaded part, not in the full sun cactus side. And by the way, the cactus soil that I use is from Tank's Green Stuff, and it is the best cactus soil I have ever used. Truly, it is amazing. I think that it's very important to buy cactus from cactus people who actually know how cactus work and grow them. It's a product that is backed by like the Phoenix Botanical Garden and a few other big cactus garden associations. So it has a lot of legitimate supporters who grow cactus all the time and know a ton about them, and they say that it's a really awesome soil. So, and I also say it's an awesome soil. The next plant that's going to thrive outside this summer is the Thamatophyllum bipinnatifilum. I hope that I said that right. I don't usually say that word out loud. But anyway, it was previously known as the philodendron sellum, which is a lot easier to say, but that is one that is super, super happy to live outside. And I've mentioned before in a previous video that a lot of people actually use it as a perennial, depending on your zone. I know somebody who is in zone, I think zone 7, who grew it as a perennial, and it's now starting to come back now. But you could do it as an experiment, or you can check on the hardiness. Maybe you could even dig it up and bring it back inside in the winter time. But anyway, I just cart mine outside and then bring it back inside for the winter and put it in a big corner in a room that I don't really go in that often because it's huge. This is definitely one of my favorite plants to put outside because it is so unruly by nature. Plants that are just like growing all over the place are not really my favorite houseplants to keep, but it's so fun to have them outside because I love seeing them just like go crazy and grow so many new leaves like all the time. So that's definitely a good one to have. I would suggest having supports for it when you bring it back inside so that you can sort of like control it because the growth really will be all over the place. But yeah, that's a really good one and I love it. The last plant that I want to mention for plants that I know for sure would do well outside is Tradescantia. And Tradescantia is a large family of plants, but really any Tradescantia in the family I think would do really well outside. Actually, a lot of people do grow them as perennials. If you're in like maybe like a zone 8 or something like that, somebody actually commented and said that they had a Tradescantia outside in a zone 8, I think in Seattle, and it came back this spring, which is super, super fun. So definitely would do really well like trailing over a pot or something, possibly even some ground cover. If you don't live in a good place for it, it would probably just be an annual, or you could dig it up and pot it up and then have it in your house all winter, and then you could just continue moving it back outside. In Tucson, the Purple Heart Tradescantia is a really, really popular ground cover. So definitely that one's an awesome one. And I am going to be putting my Tradescantia Nanook outside this summer to see what happens. I'm super excited to see if it like has a little bit of a turnaround because honestly, it's not doing great right now. And I do have one more list of plants, which is my experimental list. So these are plants that I haven't had outside yet, but I would like to try. So number 1, Fittonia. Fittonia actually grows as ground cover in its natural place. And so I really want to try in a little shade garden I'm planning on making to grow Fittonia as a ground cover because I have a really deep shade area right next to my front door, which I'm going to plant like a hydrangea and some brunera, and I would really love to see some Fittonia like weaving through it. And Fittonia is pretty affordable, so I think that I'll try and see if I can buy like, I don't know, maybe 10 plants and pot them around that area and see how they grow and crawl, and I'm just so excited. And the next one that I'm going to experiment with this time is Hoya. So I haven't put my Hoya outside besides one time I put a Hoya carnosa outside and it did really well. But all of my Hoya that I have are a little bit special to me, so I feel like I wouldn't want to risk like pests or anything like that. Like my Hoya compacta, my really big one, I have never even let that plant touch another plant because I'm so paranoid that it's gonna get like mealybugs or something, because if that plant got mealybugs, Lord help me. So anyway, with that being said, I might try my Dischidia outside and maybe my Hoya Wayetii or something like that. A plant that would be a lot easier to see if something, a pest or something moved in. And then I'd really like to try my begonia outside, my cane begonia. I think they would really like being outside because they would get lots of light, but it would be in the shaded area. I think they just would benefit from a lot of light and extra moisture. So I'm super excited to try that one out. And then the same sentiment for my alocasia. I would really like to try all of my alocasia outside this summer because I'm not like super attached to any of them. So if it didn't work out, it wouldn't be absolutely heartbreaking. Alocasia are pretty easy to find here, but I do really love them and I want to make sure that they would be happy. So I'll definitely be monitoring them, but I would really like to try them outside because alocasia love light. And there's even some alocasia here that you can grow like in full sun, like the big elephant ear. I see people grow those here all the time outside, and then they dig up the little, what are they called, like the bulb type of thing, and then they store it inside for the winter time and then plant it again, and then you have more leaves. So yeah, it's a pretty common thing to grow them here outside in full sun, but I'm gonna have my houseplant varieties growing on a little bench or something in my oak tree shade. So we'll see how that goes. All right, friends, that was probably more information than any of you wanted to know, but hope that you enjoyed, hope that you found this helpful in your journey of moving plants outside this summer. If you have any more comments, leave them down below and I will do my best to answer them. If you have any experiences putting your plants outside, definitely comment down below and let other people know, because it is a little bit of a scary thing to try to put plants outside for the first time, because you never know what's gonna happen. But I'm here to tell you, it's probably gonna be fine as long as they're not in like full blasting sun. I think they're gonna do really well. If you're not already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, follow my Instagram, and if you want to support my channel even more, I have my Patreon link down below. I have 3 tiers and would love to have you on any of them. We have a really sweet community going over there, and there were some moments from this video right here that is definitely going in a bonus clip, funny outtake version, because yeah, there were a few moments. All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.